All right, we're back. It's race week. This will be coming out on Friday, and we'll be watching practice. But the Dutch GP coming up this Sunday. We've got a sprint race coming up Saturday. Ron, how's it feel to be back to racing?
It's awesome. I've been waiting for this for a while now, feels like.
I know I've been fiending. It feels like we haven't had a race in forever. This feels a lot longer than normal for a summer break, but
Yeah.
it's kind of shaping up to be really the most important race of the year. That's kind of what we're going to talk about today. A couple of reasons why it's the most important, but there is a lot of hype around this race for a good reason. There's lots of stories and plot lines unfolding, and we're going to dive into those right now. I think the biggest and most important thing is how this race goes really determines the shape of the title fight for the rest of the season. Who gets in there and who fights, and is George Russell going to come back? Is Lewis Hamilton going to make a run at it? Is Kimi going to run away with it? What do you think we're going to see here?
Um, Honestly, I don't know. Um, I usually have some sort of random wild prediction to make. I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about it. I don't really know.
Yeah, how important is this race to the title fight?
Oh, 100%. Uh,
Yeah,
Definitely the most important of the season. Um, the Ferrari's new upgrades kind of show that they are just as fast or possibly even faster than Mercedes this weekend. I mean, it's on. You know what I mean?
yeah. I think we'll
Um,
kind of get our answer for the rest of the year from how this goes. I think if Kimi runs away with it, then we're in for a fairly dominant rest of the season. But if Lewis Hamilton or someone else is able to sneak in, I think that we've really got a good rest of the season on our hands, especially with the news that Kimmy's taking that engine penalty. But
yeah,
from what we've heard, that floor upgrade from Ferrari, or from what I've seen, is they kind of brought it half and half. So they brought a lot of upgrades to the front of the floor, to those Venturi tunnels and those daggers, but they haven't fully brought in that rear floor area where we see those mouse holes by the tire. So still a little bit more to come, but it should be a notable difference. What do you think Ferrari's chances are going into this race? Are they, favorites? Are they second favorites, third favorites? How well do you think this will suit them?
I think we might be like 1A, 1B.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Um,
With Mercedes or with somebody else?
yeah, with Mercedes for sure.
Okay.
My heart says Max, but my brain says the other two. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, you see who has the fastest lap here ever.
Lewis Hamilton.
Um, that is not a coincidence. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that, in my opinion, I think for a lot of reasons and a lot of different teams, this race is important. Ferrari being one of those, obviously, like we mentioned, but also I think McLaren. If McLaren comes out and wins this race, it kind of changes things. Now, I think that it doesn't mean that a title fight's on from them, but like we talked about last week, is if McLaren is taking second place where Ferrari wins, that instantly knocks Mercedes down a couple rungs down the ladder, and that really kind of paints a different picture. Similar to how Oscar and Lando took points off of each other last year, McLaren getting in the mix could possibly take points off of Kimi or even George's championship run and really mix things up. So I think it's important for every team, but I think these top teams, it really depends on how they play out. How important is this race for Red Bull? What do they need to be looking to do? Is it podium? Is it win? Is it just be roundabout?
I think podium. Um, Obviously, big news. Max, re-signed until 2030,
Yep,
um, which means that he believes they can win.
absolutely.
Um, and I think, getting on the podium for your first race, after signing the big contract, it's your home race. Last time it's on the um, schedule, it's like this is do or die for Max. Um, I think it's kind of whatever for Red Bull.
Yeah, I agree. I think more so for Max, you're right. This race is so important, obviously, for the title fight, but for Max specifically, last home race, re-sign that contract until 2030 with Red Bull, which is pretty significant. We all expected him to leave in the next year or two, and he's saying he's going to retire here. So it is do or die. How does he end the legacy? He's the most winningest driver at this circuit. So how he ends this story and this saga really is important. How he enters into the next is also equally as important. I think also just that Red Bull gives him a car where it works, the DRS flaps close. It's important. And I think going along with the news as well, the really big news is Liam Lawson stepping up to race for Red Bull. This is important for him to see the rest of his career. How Liam Lawson performs here at Zandvoort really does determine the career path for him, whether he stays at RB, whether he gets moved up, whether he changes teams. This is huge for him.
Yeah. I think if we see a good performance here, we could see maybe some other midfield teams take a look at him and be like, hey, why not take a chance with us? Maybe an Alpine or somebody like that.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. What does Liam Lawson need to be targeting to call it a successful weekend?
I think top 7 or 8, maybe.
Yeah. I think that's safe.
He's already scored in the points plenty of times at RB. So he, in theory should be better at Red Bull than Racing Bulls. That second seat tends to not be the case, but we really never know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see him back. I love Liam Lawson, but kind of looking back towards the front as well, what's really interesting with this being such an important race is this is a sprint weekend. So we're going to be off for 3 weeks, jump right back into one practice session, which is probably going to rain. And then we're right into sprint qualifying, right into the sprint race. So this championship battle that we're talking about being so important here, it could heat up even more if a top contender such as Kimi or George or someone like that doesn't make it into Q3 or is out of the points or something like that. This does look primed and ready to be a chaotic, mixed up circuit.
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, probably wouldn't happen. I mean, I'd like to think it will. If Lewis scores all the points and Kimi doesn't get any this weekend, the lead's only like 15.
Yep.
I mean, obviously a pretty crazy hypothetical, but that's really kind of how important this race is for the rest of the season. Because if you take home the maximum 33 points, you're like automatically back in.
Yeah, this like you said, it really could bring someone into contention immediately, and instead of looking at a big gap, all of a sudden it's all to play for. So really interesting. As I mentioned before, also the rain. It's looking like it might be our first wet race back. It's rained all day today from what I've heard and what I've seen. So they didn't get many cars out to see some of those upgrades we talked about. But tomorrow morning practice is going to be really interesting to take a look at and see what the weather's like.
Yep. That's why my heart says Max. He's like the GOAT in the rain. And, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder for this race. I mean, I want Lewis to win, but I wouldn't be too upset if Max took home his only victory of the year so far.
Yeah. Wet weather race also is going to be interesting to see how these cars react. So which drivers do good and how these cars really act under that wet weather, we don't know. So I think, like you said, those wet weather merchants, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, maybe even Fernando Alonso gets that top 5 we predicted.
Lance Stroll.
Yeah, prime Senna, Stroll.
Yep.
It's just there's so many topics coming into this race that it's really hard to cover all of them. But it's really so important for those front couple of drivers to really perform. And like you said, not just with Max, but it's do or die. If you make a mistake, the weekend's over.
Yeah. It's pretty intense. I kind of like the fact that the biggest race of the season is going to be in the rain. I feel like that makes it a lot more dramatic. And whoever wins, it'll probably look a little bit cooler. I mean, that doesn't really mean anything, but it means something to us as fans.
Absolutely. I may be just hyped that we're back to racing, but this feels like it has the makings of an instant classic.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that. I think championship battle is the biggest thing to look forward to. We've got Ferrari bringing upgrades, McLaren bringing upgrades. Seems like Mercedes may have brought a couple of pieces. So, lots of things to look out for there as that kind of changes the rest of the season. But if we look down the order a little bit to the top of the midfield, obviously, we've got Yuki Tsunoda in a Racing Bulls. What does this mean for him and for the midfield?
Um, I think it makes things more interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Um, we could see him possibly earn a spot back in the sport. Um, Not necessarily at RB, but somewhere, Haas maybe. Um, or did they lock in both their drivers?
I'm not sure. I don't think that they have.
Anyway, um, exciting to see him back in the sport. Um, we'll kind of see how Arvid does against a more experienced driver, and we possibly could see somebody in the midfield, take Racing Bull's spot at the top. That could be interesting as well.
Yeah, I think that this really shakes up the midfield. And I just looked on Formula One Instagram. They have not locked in either of their drivers this year. So this is possibly a really good test for Haas or whoever may be looking at him to see what he's made of. And this primes the midfield market. Now, the, the driver market was not as hostile as either of us thought it was going to be, but there's still
Yeah,
some pieces in the midfield to kind of fit in. And I think for Yuki, this is uh, I hate to say do or die again, but this really is make or break for his career. This race, or maybe a couple of races he gets here at RB, he has to show immediate form, immediate pace, and I think that if he has a forgettable race this week, then I think it's wraps on the career.
yeah, I agree. I would like to note that Max's teammate has not been confirmed yet. Um,
That is interesting.
Obviously just speculation, but might be something to look
Yeah,
out for.
I agree. I think it would be nice to see Lawson at racing at Red Bull. I mean, I don't think they would ever replace Hadjar, but who knows? Maybe he comes out and has a really good showing. So that'll be really interesting to look forward to. Uh, Top of the midfield as well. Alpine bringing some really big upgrades. Their first real package of the year needs to work for them, and
Yeah.
also from the pictures I've seen, the car doesn't look all that different. So maybe it's more weight savings and internal stuff, but this is important for them because this is probably the last big upgrade package for them for the season to kind of set the order of the upper midfield.
Yeah. Also another team who doesn't have one of their drivers locked in yet. And
Yep.
I think this race, if Kyle Pinto doesn't do, you know, up to the expected, we could possibly see, another driver be like getting recruited at the end of this race too. And obviously, if the car is much better than we kind of expect it to be, then we definitely could see some big moves in the midfield market.
Yeah, especially with Lawson getting a test at a different team, it's very possible that this is his audition to go to Alpine or somewhere like that. If Red Bull decides to drop him, it really does kind of set the mood for the rest of the year, but not just that, but for the grid for next year. How some of these drivers
Mhm.
perform, I think, is being looked at under this pressure. Alpine really needs a win here, right? They really need this upgrade to work. In the season on a high note with Gucci coming in next year, unknowns on the driver market. If Colapinto drops it in the rain and crashes, the implications of that are huge. So you're right. The midfield really is dependent on how this race goes and how Colapinto and Lawson and some of these other guys perform and these upgrades work. So speaking of upgrades in the midfield, Aston Martin, that's kind of one of the big storylines also coming to this weekend is how well does that Honda power unit and upgrade work? So what we've been hearing is they have up to a second or half a second in pace coming just from the power unit. But from this race, what I've heard and what they've said is they're only going to up the power a little bit. So they're going to bring that power up incrementally for reliability reasons instead of going all out. So They're looking at bringing 2/10 or so from the engine side, and I think a couple of tenths from some upgrades. So, how important is this weekend for Aston Martin?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they get that 3 or 4 tenths that they're projecting, which doesn't mean anything, as we well know, um, I think that puts them right in the fight for the midfield. Um, I mean, another 3 and 4 tenths kind of puts them on par with Racing Bulls or Alpine,
Yeah,
and we could even see, an Alonso qualifying masterclass in the rain. We never know.
yeah, you never know. What does Aston Martin need to do for this to be a successful weekend in your eyes?
Um, I think squeak out a point somewhere
Yeah,
between the sprint and the race.
yeah, I agree. I think you got to get a point, and I think you have to have two cars in SQ2 or Q2 at some point.
Yeah.
Like maybe not even at the same time. Maybe Lance Stroll gets through SQ to SQ2 and Alonso to Q2. But you've got to show some consistency in the pace, I think. But really interesting. I have high hopes for them, and I've noticed their Adrian Newey. I guess his magic. The upgrades look promising. There's lots of different changes on the bodywork. The rear wing has some changes to it, so they're really kind of hitting their stride now with these upgrades and with these changes. I think that it's really important for them. Just like I said, another storyline where this race really makes a huge difference in the future of a team, in the future of the midfield.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Also, depending on how good they do, I think it depends on if Alonso stays or retires or whatever he does. So we'd like to see him stay. I would like to see him stay, but hopefully they'll kind of pick up the pace. Uh, Moving down a little bit further, Williams big announcement this week.
Big. So exciting.
Yeah,
Albin and Sainz locked in. Yippee.
yeah, we're
Um,
really changing it up.
yep. Um, Alex Albin will continue driving the car the same way he has been. And if they give Carlos Sainz a better car, then he might actually score points. That's
Yeah.
about all I got.
I think it's interesting also that Sainz got a multi-year deal, whereas Albin only got a one-year deal. Is there been a little bit of a regime change in that team as Sainz has kind of showed some of the pace that Albin's lacking?
Yeah. I mean, Carlos Sainz, kind of a proven race winner. Um, I'd say he definitely outclasses Albin, even though the points on the season don't show that.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that's the case, and I think probably after next year, Albin's gone. Um, there's a couple of drivers that are looking for a spot on the grid that I think would fit that role much better.
Rafael Camara,
Maybe.
maybe so. Yeah, I think it's an important weekend for Williams. Maybe not as important as some of the other guys, but definitely important. And then kind of moving to the back of the grid, I think also Cadillac big weekend for them with a new team principal. They've got to maybe show some
Yeah.
promise on some of the reliability, and I think that new team principal Bukowski is going to see the cars for the first time.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be probably let down. Um,
Yeah,
I think they might be worse than he thinks.
yeah. I don't think this is going to be a particularly strong GP for them. Not that they've had
No.
particularly strong ones in general, but yeah, lots of work to do for them, and lots to come. Ryan, your podium prediction: 1, 2, 3. Who do you have?
Hang on, I'm gonna call a timeout. Audi locked in both of their drivers as well. Um,
Okay, wow,
I find that kind of interesting,
that
considering
is interesting.
Nico Hulkenberg is getting outclassed by his teammate pretty heavily right now, who is
Yeah,
like the same age as you.
I
And
know.
but yeah, Gabby gets his return to Audi for the next few years, and Hulkenberg's locked in for the project as well, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we could have been more wrong about
Nope.
the next year's grid. Literally, nothing's changing.
I think I got Lewis and Charles correct. I got Kimmy correct, and I got Lando Norris correct, and I think that's it.
Nice. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I got the top 4 teams correct, and then everything else is a wash.
Well, we don't know on Max's teammate yet, so
Yeah. Yep. We'll
it's
see.
not completely over.
Uh, yeah. Podium predictions. Who do you got? One, two, three.
All right. Should I go with what I want to happen or what I think would happen?
I'll follow your heart, man.
Okay. What I want to happen, Max, Lewis, Charles. What I
Okay.
think's gonna happen is Lewis, Kimmy, George.
Lewis, Kimmy, George. Okay, I mean, that's
Actually,
still a pretty interesting race.
Lewis, actually Lewis, Kimmy, Max. I'm gonna take that back.
Okay. Lewis, Kimmy, Max. I'm going to say on my end, I'm going to go Lando, Kimmy, Max. I think that's my top three. I think McLaren's upgrades are going to make a difference. So Lando, Kimmy, Max. Those are my three predictions. So that's kind of our overview and preview of the race and our predictions, and we'll move on to the news. All right, we've mentioned it a little bit already, but the biggest news I think going to this weekend that we need to talk about and explain is this Red Bull shakeup. Ryan, do you want to explain how this has come to be and how all these pieces are moving together?
Yeah, okay. First of all, we were like the second people on Instagram to post about it.
That is true.
Um,
I found out
I
from our Instagram.
yeah, I caught that about a minute after it got posted for the first time on social media. So Hajar broke his wrist boxing, and Hajar being replaced by Lawson, Lawson being replaced by Yuki in the Racing Bulls.
Yeah, very interesting. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't. How do you feel about this? Do you feel like Yuki should have got the step up, or do you find it weird that Lawson got it, or do you think this was the natural move?
I think it makes the most sense. I
Yeah,
mean, Lawson's been beating Arvid, so it wouldn't be Arvid. Um, well, I guess Yuki's also raced at Red Bull before, but Yuki hasn't, raced in about a year or a little less, I guess. And I think it makes the most sense for Yuki to go to Racing Bulls and Liam to go to Red Bull and maybe optimize some points here. Who knows?
yeah, I think it is a smart decision. It is really interesting because there's only one team in the grid that can move drivers around in such a way, and that really is Red Bull. So it's a unique situation, one that we don't see a lot and probably won't see again. But it is neat. I think, like we talked about earlier, it's going to provide some really interesting mix-ups and things like that. Just to breeze back over them, we don't have to talk about it, but obviously lots of drivers got announced. Carlos resigning, Max resigning into 2030, Audi locking in both of their drivers are the big stories coming out of this weekend. So lots of interesting stuff. I will mention this, and I know nothing about it. TWG, who is the main shareholder in Cadillac, is under some federal scrutiny for some tax reasons. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on there or how much it really affects the Cadillac side, but just something to maybe keep your eye out in the news for and look forward to.
Yeah, that's irrelevant. Everybody evades taxes anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think from what I've seen, they're not accusing them of any wrongdoing. They're just investigating. So I don't really know how
Yeah.
much is going to come of this, but it is a little bit interesting that's going on and just something that's echoing around in the F1 world. So that's kind of the most of the news. I don't know if you have anything else that you think is really important to mention. I guess Kimmy taking
Uh,
the engine penalty being confirmed for next race is pretty
yeah.
big news.
Yeah. We'll touch on that more, that weekend. But yeah. So guaranteed Kimmy starting from the back of the grid in Monza.
Yeah, we'll go all over what we think about that, but it has been confirmed as of this afternoon. So we'll keep an eye out on Monza. Will be a really interesting race to follow this one. So we'll move over to the
And
card corner. Go ahead.
and he said, quote for quote, exactly what I said on here about 2 weeks ago, that the track was like designed for overtaking, and it makes the most sense to take the engine penalty there.
Yeah, it is really interesting. It's funny. We've just started this, but you've got that right with Kimmy, and also being the second people ever to post about that before F1 even posted on
Yep.
their page. We had it up first, so that's pretty
Before
funny.
Red Bull too.
Before Red Bull, before I think us and Kai Millen and were the only
Yep.
people that were the first people to see it. But I've been seeing lots of memes about Isaac Hadjar boxing, and they've been cracking me up pretty good. So those are hilarious. All right, let's move over to the card corner. All right, Ryan, we'll go first on your card. Why
All
don't
right.
you tell us a little bit about this thing right here?
Okay, so first of all, I do not necessarily appreciate the person selling this card. They did a really bad job capturing the image. Um, but this is a 2023 Max Verstappen image variation, which means instead of it being a base card, they use a different image for the card, and it's a pretty rare card. Most people consider it to be equivalent to out of 25 or out of 50, roughly. There you go. There's out of 50 right there for the same price, and there's out of 25. So, you
Yep.
know, there's a few cards about the same price. There's a couple that are a little bit less right there. That was just the first one I came across. There's also a better
Yeah.
image. So, shows him celebrating. Pretty cool. You can actually get this one for 95 at the coupon code. And yeah, I think it's just a little bit different, Orange out of 25, gold out of 50. Those are pretty much always the same. And this kind of throws in the same rarity with a little bit different image and a little different look. I think it's just pretty neat.
Yeah, I think it's pretty neat. I think image variations are always cool and you don't see them a lot. So this is a really neat card. And I think it's really undervalued as well. Image variations, like for example, in Chrome 2025, which is this card is the exact same thing as I'm about to mention just 2 years ago. They're going for $400. So definitely undervalued, same rarity, and from a set that was printed less. So definitely a good buy, I think, at $99 or best offer, and something you might want to sit on or put in a PC. So I've went with Max as well, but I went with an out of 25, and this is, if I can full screen it, let's see here. Yeah, this is a Max Verstappen out of 25. This is the Ray Wave, but it is from the Mexican or the Belgium GP Driver of the Day from 2022. At only $65, which is priced well below most of your Max out of 25s. Most of
Yeah.
them are going for 100 plus. So I think it's a cool card from a good year, really cool colors, and it's kind of color match in a way, with his nationality, him being Dutch, the Orange Army over there. So kind of a neat card maybe to look at buying for the Dutch GP weekend. So definitely, I think you can have some smart buys like we've talked about with Topps F1. It's such an undiscovered market in some ways. You can buy these cards like this and sit on them. I mean, this is an all-time great who's active in the sport. It's out of 25. It's got everything: the color, the rarity, the picture, everything.
Yeah. And obviously just speculation, but it's not crazy to say that he might win at least one more championship in his career at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those cards only go up. At this point, every Max card in existence is only going to go up as the hobby goes up. There's no real risk in buying into Max's market right now. So I think these are both really good buys and just really interesting in general. So not to talk about this too much more, but Excellenza dropped some more pictures of cards. I think that's going to be interesting. So we've got some new F1 cards coming on the way, and I think good things coming up for the hobby. Golden Pools is actually looking for an F1 breaker for Whatnot and eBay and things like that.
Yeah, and Excellenza also showed that they had a 22 driver booklet coming out
That is
that
insane.
featured every driver on the grid. Those cards actually tend to go for a reasonable price in most sports, but since this is F1, that'll probably be $500,000 card,
Yep.
even though it's, you know, not that rare. And baseball or football cards of that kind of same manner that have like patches in it go for, maybe $1,000 at most.
Let's see if I can find this gigantic booklet we're talking about. I can't remember the name of it, but it's going to be pretty insane. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Let me bring this up. All right, yeah, here it is. So, a huge booklet. It's like a dual auto on each section of the card, and it just like unfolds. I don't know what you would do or where you would put this, but it's a really unique card. So I'm interested to see who pulls it and what the print run is. I don't think it's a 1 of 1, is it?
I'm not sure, actually.
I'm not either. But yeah, so pretty interesting stuff coming from the card hobby. I've got a
Yeah.
card. If we've got a second, I've got a card that I will be buying. I don't care what happens. I'm buying this card, and it will be in my collection. Let me see if I can pull this thing up really quick. Uh, Ryan knows about this card a little bit. Let's see. I'll have to bring it up in the next episode, but it's a Topps Now parallel of a card that I bought 5 of. Oh, here it is. Here we go. I will own this card. Number match Lando out of 25, special livery where the McLaren was white. I have to have this card. It goes off Tuesday.
Is it Lando's car?
I think it is. I was looking at that.
Okay.
Yep, it is. If you look at the helmet, that is Lando's helmet. So
yep.
it's got to go down. So not a lot of people watching it. Obviously, the 30 odd people that listen to this podcast, I don't think are going to get into a bidding war with me. But if you're listening, please don't get into a bidding war with me. I've got to have this in my collection. So
yeah, when he buys it, you can buy it off of him for 5 times the price.
yeah, I'll 10x it and then you can own it and I'll sign it.
Yep.
Push slap F1 podcast. So all right, let's move on to the game.
One thing I like about these games is I don't know what we're going to get coming in.
Yeah, so I don't tell you what these games are before we start. I normally come up with them about 5 minutes before we start. So I've got a little bit of a shorter game today, but if you're listening, you're not watching, I've got a number random generator, 1 to 22. I'm going to generate a random number, and we both have to come up with who we think is going to finish in that position in the main race.
Okay.
So, for example, like number 6 is up on the screen. We're going to guess who finishes 6th place. We'll yap about why we think that is. And then Monday, when we do a review of the GP, we'll revisit our predictions and see how wrong we were. So,
all right,
let's go ahead and generate this random number. And it is a 22. Okay.
Valtteri Bottas.
Valtteri Bottas. I think I'm going to get crazy here. I'm going to pick Yuki Tsunoda. I think crashes out of the main race, finishes 22nd. That's my opinion because we have wet weather, DNFs. It could be Yuki.
I guarantee that Valtteri's car breaks before the DNF
that is
even
a good
crosses
point.
Yuki's mind.
That is a good point. So you're going Valtteri. I'm going to go Yuki. Yep. We'll see just how wrong we are. So
you got to get confident in your guy.
Do what?
So you got to get confident in your guy.
I know. Before we end this, we're tantalizingly close to our 1,000 follower mark on Instagram. Partially because some of our reels have done well, partially also because Ryan has put a lot of work into following people that are in the car hobby and things like that. So if you're on our Instagram and you follow us, really appreciate it. If you're listening to us and you don't follow our Instagram, we are currently at 710 on Instagram, and we have until October. So we've already been talking about that. It'll be really interesting to see if we get to 1,000, but I really hope that we do. If you are going to the USGP and we are there, we will have stickers. We're going to try to do interviews, give out cards to people who get some trivia right. We're really going to try to make the most of the trip. And we've already had someone on Instagram mention that they were going to be there as well. So really excited about the possibility of that.
Yeah.
Voice crack of doom right there. I don't know if you heard that.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Voice crack of doom. But yeah, lots of good things coming for the rest of the season. Ryan, do you have anything else you think we need to talk about before we end this?
I think that's everything.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here, wake up early in the morning and watch F1 practice. But yeah, follow us on Instagram. You can keep up to date with all the news. Subscribe to our YouTube, new episodes every Monday, every Friday. And we will see y'all later.